Welcome everyone to video 2 for our zoology quilt, and actually this could be used for anything. It's using a charm pack, and it's a fun stack and whack, slice and dice sort of technique you can do using the lines on your mat. Now, this is the one time I will use the lines on my mat. I won't use it as a guideline for cutting in any other project. Always use the lines on your rulers for that. All right, so I have a Creative Grids mat at home, and it's got the 1/2 inch marks. This is a brand new one, so I'm not actually going to be cutting on this, but I just wanted to show you the 1/2 inch lines and how this worked for the cutting that I'm going to show you. I do have this as a typed up document as well that will assist you if you're wanting that. We can email it to you. All right, so I used the Marion Bright for this sample, and of course I used Zoology, and I used 2 packages for the quilt, the Zoology quilt. And those blocks also get trimmed down, which is another reason I can use the lines on my mat to cut. Now, I use Marion Bright, but I also noticed this is called Holiday Essentials, and it has all the same sort of colors and the same greens and reds. So you could actually mix and match these 2 together to get a lot of projects. So just think, 1 block is 1 square essentially. So if there's 42, I'm going to get 42 squares. If I've got 84, I've got 84 squares, which would be great for a runner and for placemats. So you can play with this how you would like to. So what I did the first cut is I actually went 2 inches in. So I started with the cut here. So 2 inches in and 1 inch down, or sorry, 1 inch across here. Okay, at the top. I'm working backwards from where I had. And that's my first cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show it to you. Now, sorry, I should have explained this better. I have got 3 colors stacked here. And what you want to think of is these 3 colors will look good beside each other. And they're going to rotate, but they're always going to be beside each other. So that's why I do the 3. But I will show you how you can do more. So if I put it on this mat here, you can now see I can use the 2 inch and I can use the 1 inch line. So I'm okay with my first cut on this one. Whoops, okay. So there's my 1 inch and 2 inch. Does this have to be perfect? No, I wouldn't worry about that. Like if I was here, if I was like that, you can play with that a little bit, but I just use the lines. So first cut, there we go. Okay, now I'm going to move this out a bit, okay? Now, when this is on this mat, this is why I wanted to show you, I actually went from 1.5 inches up. So I started there, and I went 1 inch down on this side. So on this mat, what's going to happen, I can eyeball that, or I can actually just use a ruler, right? So there's my ruler, there's my 1/2 inch mark. Now I can eyeball 1/2 inch because it's only right in the middle of that, okay? So I'm gonna go from the 1.5, and that's just what I chose. You could play with this. Okay, so it's going to be somewheres around there, and I'm going to cut those apart. Okay, so now I'm gonna put them back there so you can see how that would look once you've done. So you've got 3 layers. Stack number 1 is going to stay the same. This one, we're going to take the top fabric, and I know many of you have done this technique. And then on this one, it's taking the top 2, holding them together, don't shift their position, and putting them on the bottom, essentially taking the bottom one to the top. Okay, so that's going to be what a block would look like. And if I pull these apart, I'm going to chain these. Now I'm going to sew the opposite way to which I cut. So this was cut 1 and that was cut 2. I'm going to sew this seam first, and then we're adding this one on. So what's going to happen is this block, those 2, and I will explain the sewing in 1 sec. I just want to show you. So those are the starts of the block, and then that, and that. So my 3 blocks, like I said, you've got your 3 colors. They're just rotating position, but always touching each other. Okay, now the sewing, when we go to sew these, I'm going to sew these 2. I'm not worried about these being even because this gets trimmed. This is the outside of my block. It's this part here. So what I do want to have, can you see here? I want to have that 1/4 inch away from my, so when you put your needle down and you're using your 1/4 inch foot, the needle nestles right in there. So that might mean if you want to start there, you can, because it's easier to do that rather than starting here. If you're comfortable laying it out like that though, and then starting here, that makes it easier for the chaining, and I'll show you why I mean that in a second. So what happens when you do that? Oops, I've covered everything. Okay, you can see on this block here, in doing that, okay, so there's that 1/4 inch where it met and came through. This one didn't matter. Then I've pressed it. See how nice that stayed straight? And this one, not straight, but that's okay. So that's what we're worried about, is that first one here, okay? So once you've sewn that on, and again, you can chain them. This kind of shows a chaining process here. Then I add my last one on, and it's going to get, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna have lots of clearance, whoops, on either end, okay? I just sort of center it. And that's what you're going to do there. Then you're going to press it out. Okay, now see how that block is definitely not centered. We've got lots of extra on the last one. This one only didn't have one, it had a cut going this way. These cuts were done through the middle. That's why we've got that. So I'm going to trim that, and I'm going to show you. I sort of just finger press this, but you will go and you will iron that better than I did it with my hand. So now what you're going to do is you're going to square them. And what I figured on the square is I just took the largest square I could make from this consistently. So what I did is I did quite a few of these up, and then I figured out 4 1/4 was what worked. So if you notice on this ruler, can you see where I've used the arrows? And we do have these arrows. They're done by GE Designs, but they're great, like I said, on any ruler. This isn't a Stripology ruler. So what I want to make sure is I have the 4 1/4 encompassed. So I'm going to trim these off, but I also want to be looking here that I still have enough fabric, okay? And now I'm going to turn it my way so I can actually do the cutting without hurting myself or Joanne. Okay, so I've made sure I've got it all there, and I'm just going to trim, pull that away. If you've got a rotating mat, this is a great time to be using it. I would do 4 at a time and turn it. Okay, now my cut edges will go underneath the 4 1/4 inch square. And now remember, with a square, you've also got that diagonal line. That's also telling you you've hit that corner properly. Okay, so that's a good check. And am I okay there, Joanne? I can't see really well there. Okay, and I'm going to trim.
In my view, anyway.
I'm really reaching. Okay, and now we have a 4 1/4 inch block. I could have gone down to 4, but I'd rather stay as big as I could get. So I went 4 1/4 on these blocks, and that's it to making the block. Now what you can do, you can actually do more. Move that out of the way. So as far as doing your colors, these are the colors in this charm. I was able to kind of group into a green, white, and red, which actually really made it easy, because you can see here, I've got the green, white, and red stack. So I can do a stack of 6, and here's my stack of 6 that I did. Here's my chaining, okay? And then I would start sewing on each of these. Now you can see that the reason I'm saying, remember I said that chaining process, if I start with the point at the top, normally then I would, to keep this chain going without cutting it, I would have to work in this, you can see how the direction gets messed up. So I need to be sewing on this side, but that doesn't really let me get to that side. So what I would do is I would clip these apart but stack them in that order so they matched up with their partner. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Now here's my stack of 6 though, and it would be exactly the same cutting, so I'm not going to do that again, but here's a green, white, the snowman, actually I'm going to cut these, green, white, red, okay? The reason I'm going to cut them is the stacking process is exactly the same as what I showed you before, and so is the cutting. So again, using my line, so there's the 2 and the 1, so I'll cut those. And move that apart. That's the important part, just move it aside. Now remember, it's a 1/2 inch, so I'm gonna get fairly close again to that 1/2 inch. Doesn't have to be perfect. Cut. Now, last time we had 3 stacks, 3 sort of shuffles. This stack I'm leaving the same. It doesn't matter which way I do it. I'm just going to take 1 off this one and 2 off this one. And now what happens, we've introduced all these colors. So now they're all going to rotate, but it's always going to be, in the way that I've done them, a red, white, and green, no matter what, because I stacked them all that way. So if I do this to show you, it's not always going to be those same 3 colors. The shift keeps happening. Okay, that would be the first 3. And there's that one. That one. So you can see this one had, there's a repeat of 2. We've got, both of these have this one, but the red actually is a different red. It's not the snowman in both cases. And that's what I was saying about the order. Now it changes a little bit, but because I was very planned in how I stacked those, I'm always going to have a combination that's pleasing to me. Okay, and I would continue through with those ones, but I just wanted to show you how that, so this one, there's going to be 2 colors, so these 2 colors got repeated in this one. That one got shifted out. So 2 colors will move to the next one, and the 3rd one will be introduced. So that's what happens when we do 6. When we do 3, you're going to have all 3 colors each time in the block. So it's really up to you and your comfort level for doing that. But it's a great block, and like I said, you could take this idea and use it with layer cakes and do the same thing. You just play with your cutting on your mat and figure out what you want to square it down to. Okay, so I hope that helped you. We do have a handout that we can email it to you as well. And next time we will go over the quarter square triangles that are 4 1/4 inches to match up with the size of these ones. Have a great day.